People who have been extras on a porn shoot. What's your story? NSFW. I used to DJ at a duck club, swingers bar, or whatever you call them in your area. Not quite the same. But you just stop noticing the naked after a short while. Apparently they were shooting something on the balcony at Tracao House in New Orleans during Mardi Gras. I was in the background as I was next door doing work for Nola Live. Not me, but this guy called Joey was an extra and he was the printer boy trying fix the copier while people having sex on it. His only line was, that's bad for the paper tray. Knew a girl who was an extra in one of the Dancing Bears. She said that everyone signed a waiver and the main chicks in the video that duck the strippers were actual pornsters, but a few extras got carried away and sucked the strippers D. My time to shine. A few years back I was offered a role in a porn, and as I was excited about the offer I accepted. It was standard uninterested husband horny wife plot. I stayed under the covers and pretended to be asleep while ass got smashed around me. My buddy used to be a camera guy and his wife the makeup artist on adult films in Chatsworth, CA. They invited me to come visit. I didn't know this meant I'd be in a scene. It was called Frat House Duck Fest and I'm the guy yelling duck her face over and over again while eating BBQ chicken. I was assured it wasn't a porn, just an erotic film, by the guy who introduced me to the project, but a few things tipped me off. Every other actor there was a porn actor. We had an alibi if the owner asked us what we were shooting. The title was a sexy riff on a well-known TV show. The director had exclusively directed porn for 40 years. Saw them shooting a scene where a dude was actively jerking off to a naked woman dancing. I just played a cop and never had to drop trowel. Highest paid acting gig I'd ever gotten up to that point in my life. When they asked me what I wanted to credit myself as, I realized I couldn't put my name on it. So I chose my friend's name, to whom I owed some mild revenge. It's still on his IMDb profile. Sorry, Mike. More fan at me but. Full stop. More fan will not an extra but. Full stop. More fan at porn but. This reminds me of that guy who played a blind dad whose daughter got pounded by his stepson in front of him. I was offered once to be an extra. The father of a friend did porn movies and needed a few students for a classroom. I had to work. So I refused. That's the whole story. A friend of mine got to be a background extra in a porno for an old porn site that was filming at his friend's coffee shop in Brooklyn after hours. It was supposed to look like the couple was ducking while disinterested customers just sat in the background. The male actor had trouble staying hard and they had to keep stopping and restarting. He said it seemed like everyone was pretty upset with the whole situation, and while they did eventually finish the scene, apparently it was bad enough that the site never even bothered to post it. Guess I'll contribute one. Before anyone asks. No sources available. It was for a pay site and I've long since lost the ability to access it. One of my best friends and former FWB ran a website for a low-level porn producer. She talked me into being in front of the camera as sort of a fake cameraman who was on camera filming people have a sex. I was supposed to be a husband or boyfriend or whatnot who was filming his partner ducking someone. It was fun, I guess. Got to join in on the post-shoot hot tub parties. And slept with a few of the girls when they were off duty. All in all, it was a thing I did during my wilder days. I was an extra for a public disgrace and an upper floor shoot for Kink.com. It was super cool. For public disgrace they had an open bar. But if you chose not to drink you could actually play with the model during a couple parts of the shoot. This one chick jumped in at the first opportunity and just went to town finger banging the model lol. The upper floor shoot was basically a fancy sex party with a porn being shot in the background. They had an open bar, delicious appetizers, 6 toys and furniture to use. In the outside halls they had giant oil paintings of crazy kink shoots placed in golden ornate frames. It was the most posh sexy thing I've ever done. My dad is an actor and one of his first jobs was being the main non-sexual role in a porno, where he basically visited his high school graduation class crushes and was there to look at the living sex with other dudes. It's fucking hilarious. He basically said he got paid like $500 for the back in the 80s, and was just improvising the entire time. There's a scene where he smiles at the camera while peeking through his roommate's door. And the last scene is him half talking half crying to his roommate while he and another chick are going at it. The porno itself is excellent. He was definitely there. Can't remember the name though. Found it on his hamster. My wife was an extra when we had sex the other night. I can't remember the last time I saw porn with extras in it. 14 comments and not a single one answering your question. That's rough, buddy. It was great. It was a spin-off of The Price is Right and I was the winner, so I came on down and played her. 10-stroke 2 would recommend. I was asked to be a camera operator for a porn. It was a kinky femdom style shoot. Over the course of 2 days the dom had a men come in and do a scene with her. Twice during the shoot for whatever reason the man was a no-show. Each time the man knocked the camera down on the tripod and stepped in as the sun. I'm really into femdom, so it was a dream job both to shoot and act. She put me in bondage. Did impact play. Did some tease and deny. More impact. And finally let me orgasm. It was fun. Every time she visits my city for a porn shoot now she has a preferred cam on. I wasn't an extra, but actually auditioned for a porn when I was 18. After all the STD test they scheduled a live audition. I show up and meet the crew and the female actress I'm supposed to have a sex with. It was super hot BTW. No, I don't remember her name. So we finally get on set and it's time to get down to business and there are only 8 people in the room. I'm expecting most everybody to leave. I figured there would be no, the cameraman and maybe one other person in the room. The only problem was nobody is leaving the room. She starts by giving me a BJ, but I'm so nervous and with all the people watching Whitey has stage fright. They tell me to take a minute and go to the bathroom and try to get my little man to rise to the occasion. To make a long story short, I couldn't get it up in front of all the people. In my defense, I wasn't a virgin but I wasn't super experienced either. So because nobody has actually been an extra on a porn shoot, per the request, I lied. 2 weekends ago I walked out my front door and there was just a dude walking down the sidewalk, throwing out my old roommate's stuff and there was a super nice fitted A's hat and I asked dude if he wanted it. Brand new and I felt weird throwing it away. He said yeah. Randomly asked me if I'd ever thought about acting. Already knew where it was going but said sure. I mean why not lay it on me? He offered me a blunt and told me that he makes porn in a house close to mine and that they're going to be doing a all black chicks plus white hipster video. What do I think? Could I lay it down on camera? Told him I'm sure I could. We exchanged numbers and he told me to hit him up if I was down. Didn't say no. Didn't say yes. So I could be an extra in a porn movie soon. Edit, not a troll joke. Live in South Central LA and sidewalks are very much a thing. I was an extra. I actually didn't know it was porn until I got there. My role was I was sitting down at a cafe when the main 2 characters met. You see me for like a second. I got $100 pretty easy money. We'll do it again. I was an extra for a gangbang scene. Unfortunately, I never got to get in on the action because the actress tapped out after the 50th guy. You'd think I would have been able to go first since she was my wife. Also, there were no cameras. My girlfriend shoots fetish stuff. Don't really have any stories like you are thinking of. The producers and models are all super nice people. The producer took us to Universal Studios the day after the shoot. Saw the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, so that was pretty cool. It was by accident. There was this website on Bangus 10 years ago called Duck Team 5 where they filmed average guys banging porn stars. I was at the checkout line at a liquor store and they staged a couple of random guys next to me and 3 porn stars walked in to seduce them. It wasn't until years later that my friend discovered me and sent me a link to the video. The camera guy never asked me for permission to be on film, so I guess I could have sued. Should have used a serious tag, my dude. But I've got a real one for you. And I've talked about this before. A woman I know's mother is a porncaster. Has been for like 25 years. She grew up going to the sets and became a clothed extra when she turned 80. Her entire love map and social etiquette are completely warped. She thinks she should have everything she wants because she's pretty. She's one of those really annoying vegans and is somehow Although I have no idea how. Still a virgin at 33. Hell. Princess is part of her legal name. She has no idea how to be a normal human female because she grew up essentially watching porn. She dances like a stripper and doesn't know how to deal with people telling her no. I used to be a professional makeup artist and was hired to do makeup on a porn set. First time on a movie before then mostly weddings, proms, fancy nights out, occasional theater work. I thought this would be a good addition to my side hustle. I worked admin during the day and makeup on weekends. One task was to disguise the lead actress's pubic shaving shadow. Her pubic area smelled so bad it was unbearable. I'm assuming she had picked up some horrible diseases at some point and none of the male stars even seemed to notice. But she stank like a skunk that had been hit by a car and left to rot in the sun for the weekend. Absolutely decomposing flesh and putrefaction. I can't understand how the guys could deal with that. Goodness knows what they were picking up from her. That was the day I quit my makeup side hustle. YouTube instructional videos were making us obsolete at that time anyway. Sigh. Not an extra. But I have done some background work in porn. There's a guy in our town who does small time porn shoots. So, just to call myself out as a sexual deviant, I'm into BDSM. I've been tying knots on people for almost 15 years. So, this porn guru that I'll call LL got my number from a friend who was in one of his shoots and texts me about doing some bondage for a few of his films. LL gives me an idea of what he wants and says he'll pay me per shoot. Because YTF would I say no to that kind of easy money? So I show up, spend a couple hours tying up girls, stay on set to make sure it all works and is safe and watch a guy rail. I've had to kind of coach his male star about where to pull to tighten, where to pull to loosen, how not to actually hurt someone, etc. The shoots lasted each about 1-2 hours, give or take. I've done this 4 times for LL now. It's really awkward. I mean really awkward. About a week ago, he started texting again asking about 6 machines and suspension and I'm not sure if I like where this is going. Saw a gif earlier where the dude pulls a script out. Says thought I was an extra today. But okay and gets his D sucked haha. In the 80s my dad owned a video store and was approached by an adult video production company to shoot the intro to one of their movies in his store. He agreed and on the day of the shoot they informed him that they needed one of the employees to be in the scene as the video store clerk. So there's probably 10 seconds of this hour-long movie with my dad showing these 2 women to the adult section of the store. Cut a few months later. The production company wants to do a softcore cut of the movie for cable channels and my dad's seen it in the preview for it on the Playboy channel. He gets a call one night from his sister yelling at him about how he's in a porno. Apparently her husband liked to watch the Playboy channel and saw it. My dad had to explain how he wasn't actually in it etc. He got a lot of calls while that preview was being shown haha.
I've committed the most disgusting acts. 8 Reddit confessions about regret. I could have saved someone's life, but didn't. When I was 16 I was walking to work. I looked into one of my neighbor's gardens and saw an old man laying on the ground. I panicked and just speed walked away. I stopped down the road and was going to turn around but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Back then I suffered with big anxiety problems and I just didn't know what to do so I just went off to work. I got home later that day and my mom told me that the man down the road had died. He was found about an hour after I saw him and died just as he got to hospital. He died from a heart attack. If I called an ambulance when I first saw him there's a huge chance he would have survived. I have lived with this button for 10 years now and never told anyone. I was happier when I was fat. I've lost almost 100 pounds over the last year. A lot of really good things have come from this. Physically I feel great and have so much energy. I can run for miles and miles and miles, and I don't get winded when I take the stairs. I recently had blood work done, and it was all perfect. I'm pushing 40 so it's good that I'm finally getting my body in shape. The mental side is rough, though. I literally don't recognize myself when I look in the mirror. We were in the city this weekend, and I kept catching glimpses of us in the windows. I'd recognize my husband and spend a few seconds trying to figure out who he was walking with. Me. I'm constantly getting compliments and comments from friends and coworkers. It was nice in the beginning, and it was a good source of motivation, but now it's giving me a complex. If a heavier person overhears me getting praise for my weight loss, does it make them feel bad? Do they think I'm showing off by getting new clothes? Are they secretly assuming it's only a matter of time until I start gaining weight back? Do they hope I gain it back? Then there's the men. I didn't date in high school, and though I did date a fair amount in my early 20s, it's never like I had guys lined up. I've been with my husband for almost 15 years, and in all of that time I've never really felt like guys hit on me. Now that I'm thin, it's like they're crawling out of the woodwork, and I'm overwhelmed. I'm getting private messages from guys from high school that never spoke to me back then. I'm even getting attention from really young guys. It's exhilarating and a little intoxicating, but it's also offensive and almost scary. It's proving to me what every fat girl fears. I was invisible to all of these men before, but now I'm suddenly worthy of their attention. I don't know how to process all of this. What do you do when your mind and body don't match? All I know is I don't want to gain the weight back. I had unprotected intercourse with someone who turned out to be HIV positive, and I'm terrified. I never do this normally. I made one mistake, and it was a big one. I feel like an idiot. I've already gotten the blood work done. This happened 48 hours ago, and I'm on the emergency post-exposure prophylaxis. I'm very healthy. I was on top, no blood, no semen, and his levels are undetectable. But still, that means nothing. This is the most terrified I have ever been. Ever. I just don't know what I'm going to do. I should have my results by Tuesday for my baseline, then they can continue the PEP treatment. I'm scared. When I was 10, I lied about being molested. I haven't told anyone this before. To this day, I feel like a terrible human being. Even though I was a child, I still knew right from wrong. Here we go. I was in the 5th grade. That year in itself was a difficult one due to my mental illness being at its peak. I was friends with 2 girls who would constantly play mind games with me. One day, we'd all be the best of friends. The next, they'd gang up together and leave me out. I desperately wanted them to like me. So, I made up a story for attention. I said that I was molested. At the time, I lived in an apartment complex. There were 3 floors. The first level was a series of 3 apartments and the laundry room, the second and third had 3 apartments each. I told my friends that I was coming back from the laundry room and a neighbor boy pulled down my pants and touched me. I thought I had an airtight alibi. Until the 2 girls told everyone in our class. And then it circulated to our principal. My principal contacted my parents. Every single one of my peers heard about it. I was living this huge lie all because I wanted attention. Finally, I broke down and told my mom the truth. She made me tell my principal that it was all made up and I had to write a letter of apology to everyone I hurt with my lies. I still feel extremely remorseful about it. It has been 9 years since that happened, but every so often I will have these moments of utter self-hatred. Lying about being molested, raped or sexually assaulted is one of the worst things that someone can do. And I did it. I will forever live with this shame. I regret my abortion, and I feel like I can't talk about it with anyone. When I was 22 years old, I had an abortion. In the aftermath, I was overtaken with overwhelming feelings of regret, sorrow, and despair. It happened over 6 years ago, now, and I still feel as though I can't move on. My abortion was a mistake, and for years the absolute last thing I wanted to do was talk about the worst mistake I had ever made. But today I felt like I should speak out about my own experience, so women like myself don't need to feel so alone. I'm glad to hear that for others it wasn't, but I feel the narrative doesn't include women like me. I wish I could talk about my experience with other people in my life. I can't confide in anyone about it, in part because I'm only starting to be able to relive all those emotions all over again. After my abortion, I spent so much time wishing I could change the past. I think about it on the day that would have been my baby's birthday, during every holiday since that day, every time I see a child at the supermarket. It's disabling. I just can't stop thinking about it. I feel like I'm back in that office, making the decision to go through with it. I can't go back in time, I can't stop myself, and I feel trapped in this world I ultimately don't want. I see my sister's child, who's now 5, and I just feel so empty. I started avoiding my sister and nephew, because seeing them brought me back to that office, with that decision. The years since my abortion have been consumed by the worst kind of lonely grief I've ever felt in my life. At 20 years old, I've committed disgusting acts in my lifetime. When I was a freshman in high school, I anonymously tormented a female peer online. I would Photoshop fake nudes of her and use them to blackmail her for nudes, which she wisely never gave into. As I got older, my social skills just never caught up. I never knew how to talk to girls, let alone anybody. I began secretly recording bathroom videos of my female peers. Knowing that I was seeing something that I wasn't supposed to would get me off. It became such an obsession that I'd spend hours brainstorming which angles and lighting would look best, even when I was at home laying in bed. I've since deleted all the files I had accumulated and disposed of the devices containing them. I don't know what happened. I grew up with two normal, loving parents and a caring sibling in a middle-class household. While I've had a history of social ineptitude since I was very young, it's not like lonely children usually grow up to be creeps like me. These days I've gotten back into reading and enjoying films. I've got creative aspirations, but with the sins, or whatever the secular equivalent is, I've committed, I just can't see how I'm worthy of living a life of dignity anymore. I've ruined a poor girl's teenagehood with a traumatic experience and violated the privacy of many people. I want to turn it around so badly. I'm sorry. I had to hit my son and it is killing me. My son has problems and is 18. He quit taking his meds and I didn't realize it. I asked and he said he was. Never gave a reason to doubt him before. He got in a massive argument with his stepmom. He lunged at her and got her around the throat. I jumped in to break them apart. Next thing I know we are on the ground and I can't get him to let go of her neck. I couldn't find any other thing to do so I punched him at least 3 times in the side of his head until he let go of her. We were on the hardwood floor so it hurt him on both sides of his head. I saw a small amount of blood come from the corner of his eye from where I was hitting him. His 12-year-old stepbrother saw all of this. He called his mom and his stepdad moved him out of our house that night. I always said I would protect him and be there for him no matter what he did. I feel like I let them all down. I'm so sad, it hurts and I don't want to tell any of my friends. I ran away from home when I was 18 and my mom killed herself shortly after. She said me running away was part of the reason she did it. I am 39 now, so this was a long time ago. I was born in Puerto Rico but me and my parents moved to New Jersey when I was 12. When I was 16, my dad died of a heart attack that none of us expected. My mother was heartbroken, she loved my dad, they had such a ridiculously loving relationship together, it was like a picture-perfect marriage. She was also only 37. After that, I got more reckless in life in general. I started going to NYC a lot more and hanging out constantly with other people. I had a bit of growth spurt and became very tall and pretty, and soon I started working for a modeling agency. My mother hated it, she hated everything I was doing, she thought it was all sinful and filled with drugs and sex and alcohol. She forbid me from going to NYC but of course I went anyways. I slept around with a lot of men, and she found out eventually, overheard me talking to a friend in my bedroom, and got furious at me. She was hurting so bad over my dad's death, but I didn't care because I was consumed by anger and frustration at her being so restrictive on me. I started going to raves more often, and she really hated those. She saw my skimpy rave outfits and would just start crying, saying my dad would never allow something so terrible. I wanted to emulate Fairuza Balk from the movie The Craft. I got piercings, she hated that. I got tattoos, she really hated that, and I smoked pot, and when she found out about that she nearly called the police on me. She would smack me around sometimes when she was really mad, and I never responded except once when I pushed her back and she just whammed me right in the eye. She was being irrational on some things, but obviously looking back, the crowd I was running with was not exactly a good crowd and she was right to be worried. There was a time where she just had a mental breakdown for like a whole month, leading up to my 18th birthday. Both over me being reckless and partying a lot and also over my dad dying. They were related, because she blamed my dad dying on my reckless behavior, and constantly said that if he were here I wouldn't be like this. She was right, a lot of this was acting out because I was sad and depressed at first. Once I got into it more, it was less acting out and more just that I wanted to be a model, but still. My dad dying was the catalyst for me to go the route. During her breakdown we got into constant fights where she would be crying and yelling at me. I would say I was going to leave at my 18th birthday and she would go from angry to sad and begging me not to go because she needs someone to stay with her. This was also around the time I had started to do coke a lot. She kept on begging me not to leave, but I just didn't care. I was selfish and greedy and I didn't care that I was leaving my poor, depressed, grieving mother behind. More than anything, it was my burgeoning coke addiction which fueled this. I went from doing coke maybe once a month before, to doing it once every few days. I wanted to be closer to NYC and wanted to just get away so I could do more coke. I sometimes wonder if maybe I would have seen reason and stayed with my mom if my mind wasn't constantly focused on cocaine. Another factor was that her anger and restricting side, in my mind, overrode any empathy I had over her being sad. I didn't see her as a grieving person, I just saw her as a bitch who was trying to keep me down. So I left, at 18. 3 days after my birthday we got into a massive fight and I just packed my stuff and went away to go live with my friend Ivy in Williamsburg, pre-gentrification, back when it was mostly Borka still. I had already stayed with Ivy for days at a time before, she had a spare bedroom, why not? We got calls nearly every day from my mom. Usually Ivy would pick up, saying my mom was crying in Spanish and was incomprehensible. I was just happy to be away. I didn't respond to her calls. I was partying, sleeping with guys, I could smoke pot in the apartment, I could cook whatever I wanted. I was so happy. Then one day I picked up, and she was so happy to hear my voice, and I just told her that I don't want her harassing me, that I can be on my own without her worrying constantly, that I don't need her anymore and I don't want her restricting me constantly. Then I found out that my mom killed herself. Maybe 4 to 5 weeks after I moved away. She left a note which basically laid out why she did it. She was horribly depressed because she lost her husband, her friends, apparently she had a lot of drama with her friends about a year before. She used to be very social but then barely went out, and now she has lost her daughter. The note was specifically supposed to be for her family back in Puerto Rico. I still don't know if it was intended for me to read it. She described me as her sunshine, her angel, and she would have done anything for me, but now I was gone forever and she has nothing in her life. She kept on saying she was losing her faith in God. She must have said that about 5 times in the suicide note. It was the worst thing I had ever gone through. This was worse than losing my dad. I just felt a wave of horror come over me that I had done this, that this was my fault, that I was a terrible person and that I abandoned my mother when she needed me the most. Ivy and my other friends didn't even know what to do. I had spent the past year with them constantly complaining about her. My entire demeanor changed. I went from happy and fun to just sad and moody and acting out and binging on drugs alone in my room. Anyways, I would go on to become a cokehead. Well, I already was before my mom died, but it got worse, and my work in modeling came to a standstill. I went to rehab at 22. Then moved back to Puerto Rico to my aunt and uncle's place to get away from drugs. Yes, I know Puerto Rico has a ton of drugs. This was on a rural farm area though, for a year. Anyways, it's been so many years since then, but I still think about it all the time. She was an amazing person even though she wasn't really herself in that last year of hysterics and despair. The thing which actually made me write this was a television show I watched, The Haunting of Hill House, because the mother in that, Olivia, reminded me so much of my own mother before my dad died and she went crazy. I'm 1 year married to my new husband. I'm a completely different person now than I was when I was 17. I don't drink or do drugs or anything like that. I went through years of therapy to deal with what happened with my mom and the guilt about it, and realizing how selfish I had been in everything. It sucks, and I am guilty, partially, there is no real denying that. I was horrible to my mom and ran away the first chance I could, but I have learned to live with the guilt at least. Thanks for listening to Radio TTS. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell for more videos. Click the right box for the Confessions playlist. Let us know in the comments what you think about these stories. It was priceless seeing my cheating ex-girlfriend's face as I was balls deep in her sister. Is getting revenge ever worth it? Tell me your revenge stories. So, I was working at a 7-Eleven for just shy of a year. The store was a franchise, which means it was independently owned by a Lebanese guy whose IQ was probably somewhere in the 80s. He treated us all like crap, and the only person who made more than minimum wage was the useless clerk he was cheating on his wife with, who, for some reason, made $15 an hour. This guy never did anything by the book. If he thought it would make him more money, then the law didn't apply to him. Nobody at the store ever got a lunch.